Thank you. Welcome. The hour of 4:32 being here. I'd like to call the Police and Fire Commission for Fitchburg to order. I was thinking before we proceeded with the agenda, I was thinking last Friday with 9/11, you know, it'd been 19 years, and I just thought it would be nice maybe to start out meetings with some, you know, remembrance as it might be appropriate. In this case, I'd like us to have a moment of silence. We lost over 343 fires, over 60 police officers, over 3,000 Americans. And I think it's a good time to remember, you know, all those in public service and all those in harm's way and honor them with a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Second order of business is approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and is there a motion? People on the screen, if you can just raise your hand so I can notify you if I see you. Okay. Jeff, I saw you raise your hand. Thank you. Are you making a motion?
Not making a motion. I was just saying, yes, I read the notes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Rosa? Second? Anyone?
I will second.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any discussion? Anybody see anything? I didn't see anything. All those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, looks like we don't have any public appearances. Item number 4, report of the police department. Chief?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sarah, any chance you could bring up the report for me? Unless there's a way for me to share my screen, which I assume there's not, since I'm not plugged into the Zoom call. Should be in the agenda, I assume. While she's looking for that, I will say that my recollection of the report is that there were no changes from the previous month. We have one officer still in the field, in the Law Enforcement Academy at Black Hawk Tech. He began the academy at the end of July, so we're closing in on probably 2/3 of the way done there. Things are progressing well. And we have an officer who is going to be out on extended leave due to an injury, so that's where the 2 current unfilled patrol positions are at. And we'll talk later in the meeting about anticipated vacancy and or retirements.
Any questions? If not, item B would be the authorization to begin a new police officer recruitment.
So we would like authorization to begin a new police officer recruitment. We are anticipating a potential vacancy yet this year, and we also are anticipating an announced retirement for early 2021, probably in the first quarter of the year or so. And with all that in mind, we think that it would be appropriate to begin a process now that will give us an opportunity, as you can see by the timeline on the screen, to hire potentially by the end of the year and get somebody on board here, particularly if we have vacancy yet prior to the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So under this proposed timeline, if the process is approved, we would begin advertising tomorrow. Advertising would be closing on October 11th. HR would redact names of the applicants on their applications the week of October 12th. And there would be that application review period, which would consist of members of the police department and members of HR, where they go through and independently assess, 2 raters go through and independently assess each application that's been submitted. Panel interviews would be scheduled for the week of October 26th, and much like we have done in the past, I would anticipate 2 days worth of interviews, depending on the number of applicants, of course, but looking to get somewhere around 40 individuals into a panel interview. And as we have done since my time here, we would include a member of the community on that panel and one member from the Fitchburg Police Department, and then one or two other panel members from other police agencies in Dane County. A preliminary background screen would be done after that first round of interviews on any candidates that we were considering moving on to the next interview, which would be with me on November 9th and or 10th, depending upon the number of candidates that are selected to move on to that phase. Backgrounds would begin on November 11th. We would anticipate recommendations to the Police and Fire Commission on November 18th. Looking at those conditional offers to ideally be approved at that November 18th meeting. And the conditional offer would include, obviously, successful passing of a medical, psychological drug screen, and also finishing up the background portion of the hiring process. I think it'll be important to have that as a condition as well, since it's possible that we still may have a couple of loose ends out there a week into the background process that we still will want to tie up. But we should have a pretty good indication in that first week if a candidate's got any glaring concerns related to that. Then looking at a start date will be obviously dependent upon whether or not the candidate would need the police academy. If that is the case, there will be academy beginning at Madison College in January, so we would look to time the hiring in conjunction with that. If they do not need the academy and we had a vacancy at the time the process was concluded, then we would look to begin them in the field training process potentially before the end of December. So, of course, it would all depend on if they have to give 2 weeks at their current employer and other factors at play. But, basically targeting mid-December to mid-January for a start date, assuming the anticipated vacancy comes into play yet this fall.
Okay.
Questions at all?
Yeah, questions from commissioners.
So just in comparison to the last time that we did this, there was an effort, I believe, made to get lateral transfers or transfers from other current police officers and other departments. And I guess, is that an emphasis this time? And if not, why?
Yeah, that will actually be kind of, I don't know if I want to say a standing emphasis, but we have the lateral transfer language in practice here. And that is something that we'll continue to use and look for candidates that do have experience. I've said all along, I don't think we can make a living on hiring exclusively laterals. So we're always going to look to hire the best candidate for the role that we're hiring and that they are a good fit for the culture that we want here in our community and in our police department. So by all means, we hope that it's definitely a recruitment piece that is going to deepen and perhaps widen our applicant pool. And ultimately, if somebody with prior experience comes in, that's great. It does help our field training process. It does help get them, acclimated and up to speed much more quickly. But also, we also have a need for bilingual officers as well. So we'll weigh all kinds of life experience and what they bring to the table through the process. So to answer it's a long-winded answer, Jeff. I'm sorry. I have a habit of that, I know. But we'll continue to use laterals where we can. And that process will always be available absent any modifications to it, which I don't anticipate.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, just where will the application process be published? You have that figured out yet?
I'll defer to HR on that.
No? Oh, no, okay. So yeah, going back to the lateral, we will have a lateral police officer posting and the entry level. We did that last time and it was pretty successful because the lateral we can highlight at a higher rate of pay. And then I have a whole list of different places that we post the police officer. I can send the whole commission a list of all of, but we have numerous local diversity sites and contacts that first we share our postings with, and then a number of police officer specific sites, and then some others. So I'd be more than happy to share that list with the Police and Fire Commission, and then if you have any recommendations or thoughts about additional places, let me know.
The other questions? If not, I had one. It looks like you only have 1 week for backgrounds. And I'm wondering if that's enough, if you might want to initiate that earlier. Or,
Yeah, it is a very good question, Tom, and yes, 1 week probably is not enough, and that's why when we come to the PFC, or when I come to the PFC on November 18th, and look to get conditional offers, we'll still include the successful completion of the background investigation as one of the conditions,
okay,
in addition to the other standard conditions as well. And we've added a ride-along into that process as well that people are now required to complete with a written exercise summarizing their experience on the ride-along and so forth. So it is unlikely, but we should again have a pretty good indication if there are any glaring issues in that first week. But again, have to just tie up some loose ends there, maybe in it for another week after that.
and the other question I had, with the reality of COVID, just the difficulties in some of the, the interview, how you're gonna set up the interview process, all the kind of things to make sure we're keeping both the people who are doing the interviews as well as the applicants safe, all the things that, kind of change because of it. And, and I don't know if there's been any guidance put out by Department of Justice or anybody who, kind of like, well, in the recruitment process, this is gonna be a little bit different now for the next, 8 months, so.
Yeah, I will defer to my HR colleague. I know that she's up on best practices, and I know that she's had to do several hiring processes for the city during COVID, so we will certainly follow her lead and expertise as we always do.
I think you're, okay, great question. So we've done a numerous recruitments using Zoom for interviews, but sometimes, like for example, for library positions, because of the nature of their type of work where they're going to be with the public, we're still holding some of those interviews in person, but everybody's masked up. So the question becomes, with it being a police officer who is going to still be out there in the public, as long as we're taking good precautions, keeping people distance, and maybe we have interviews in a more open space and not a conference room. But yeah, we're likely going to hold in-person interviews due to the nature of police work, but we're going to try to do so in a very, very safe way.
I just knew things would be different, but are there some unique things about, enforcement positions that are important to have some, a little more information, so, okay.
In addition to the whole, how do you do an interview, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers are in the pool. And I think that's something that the entire profession is paying attention to right now. And I've heard some of our medium-sized cities in Wisconsin, their applicant pools are down. And that's something that's going to be necessary to pay attention to without a doubt. And hopefully we still get a deep enough pool and find really good candidates there.
And have they discussed, with the chiefs and DOJ on new recruiting strategies potentially to look at?
Well, I think we're all trying to find that magic potion on the recruiting strategies, and nobody's come up with the magic potion yet. So we'll all keep trying different things and talking with one another and, seeing what works for others that might work for us.
Okay,
The lateral transfer is certainly an opportunity that's been productive for us. I think we've hired 4 officers already in the last year or so, year and a half, on that lateral transfer. It could continue to be an opportunity for us. I got a call recently from a community member who knew somebody who was an officer in the region that was looking to relocate to the Madison area and asked about our lateral transfer program. So I think it does help. There's no doubt about it. Maybe that will help keep our numbers up around that 100 or so applicants that we've had the last several years, ideally.
okay. Other questions from commissioners? I'm looking for any hands. Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the authorization and the process that's been outlined?
I can move for Tom.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Tom moves, there a second? Okay, Rosa? Okay. Any other further discussion on the processes outlined? Okay, if none, all those in favor for the authorization for the processes outlined signify by saying aye.
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 Any objections? No? Okay. Okay, that takes us to the closed session. So, pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, Wisconsin Statutes, the Commission will move into closed session for the purposes of considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation of any public employees or other governmental body that has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically to remove the probationary status of one police officer. Is there a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the statute? Okay, Rosa, second.
Move that we go into closed session?
Okay, pursuant, and then is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and Jim does? Okay. All those in favor, we want to say both aye and raise something affirmative so that everybody knows that you voted yes to go into closed session. Raise
Aye.
Okay, aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're into closed session, please. Return to open session. And is there any motions?
There is.
Rosa?
I move that we approve the recommendation of the police chief to release Officer Louis Baltasar of his probationary status and be appointed to regular status as a police officer.
Okay, and there's a second. Jim?
Second.
Yeah, okay. And then is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Next item of business is report of the fire department. Chief?
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
All right, so the long and short, we sent out the report. I'm just trying to get to that right now. Had it up and now it's not there. And that's typical for.
It's up there for you.
I see you got it up on the screen, Sarah. So our responses they've been consistently increasing over the summer. Obviously, during the pandemic, some of our responses were down. As I indicated at our last meeting, that didn't necessarily take away from the amount of work that we had to do based on the readiness of our employees and some of the extra work that needed to be done as a result of isolation. If we go to the second page, you can take a look at the staffing as it exists right now. We were fortunate enough to have 5 individuals approach us for sponsorship. The difference between sponsorship and internship and the paid on premise is the fact that sponsorship, they are not employees of the city of Fitchburg. They come to us because they are looking for ways to actually start training in the fire service, and it allows them to use our equipment, and then through MATC, they get their certifications. It is through that sponsorship that I hope to be doing a lot more in the way of outreach, but there too, it's sort of dependent on how many items we have available in the way of personal protective equipment, because each one of our ensembles, the ones that we provide to our firefighters, cost upwards to $4,000 just for the pants and the coat. And so we have to be very careful with what our expenses are in that way, because they really have no obligation to us to continue their training. The benefit behind the program is if they finish the program, we've seen a number of employees or a number of candidates that have then gone on to become paid on premise firefighters for us. I know of at least 3 in the past 2 years that have become members as a result of their sponsorship. So other than that, the numbers are pretty well consistent across the board and indicative of the normal ebbs and flows that we see within our membership. One of the things that we are bringing on board, and it's going to be starting next week, is mentoring and coaching training for just about anybody that wants to attend it, but we are focusing on those who would typically be mentors in our department. So that could be anybody. We try to exercise leadership at all levels. So we have a number of new firefighters that may be mentoring candidates or sponsorship individuals or new people that just come through the door. So mentoring can happen at that level as well. But it's the reason why I brought it into the department is because I saw that there was a need for our first line leadership and our command staff to go over what is required to be able to provide the appropriate direction to people in the organization that are really looking at either making it a career or taking the next step through promotion. So that's going to be training that happens over the next 2 months in the way of bringing in some outside expertise and addressing those things that are consistent with progressive levels of leadership. And with that, we're still monitoring the COVID situation in order to provide our training as responsibly as possible. I mean, the unfortunate nature to most of our training is it has a tendency of being close quarters. And so by training in a team environment where people are less than 6 feet from each other and oftentimes without facial covering until they put on their mask for their SCBA, we're just very conscientious of what we're doing with our employees and how we're exposing them to potential spread. So it's been painful because of the fact that we pride ourselves on our training ability with the Fitchburg Fire Department, and we've seen other departments that are training their personnel. I think it's a difficult position to be in because we're telling the general public that you have to exercise caution when in communal situations, and if we don't do it, it sets the wrong expectation. So I'm hoping to get back to training more regularly as we go. And the work plan, I keep that in there just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that we are continuing to work on throughout the year. My next work plan will be developed toward the end of this year, but many of the things that we have on this list are being accomplished on time, with a couple of things that haven't necessarily happened as quickly as we would have liked them to. Recruitment being one of them because of the fact that we're involving the outside population, people outside of the department. But one of the things that recently came to fruition is our chaplaincy, and the chaplaincy serves police, fire, and EMS. Ultimately, it could serve the chaplains could serve the entire city staff as it pertains to incidents of significance, natural disasters, man-made disasters. But typically, it's outreach between police, fire, EMS, constant gentle presence in the way of peer support, post-traumatic stress, and critical incident stress debriefings. So with that, I think I've talked a lot. I have a tendency of doing that, so I'll pause now in case that you have any questions.
Okay, any questions? I guess I had one. Are the people that you have under sponsorships, are they volunteers essentially, or are they compensated in any way?
Right now, they're volunteers. I think moving forward, would I like to bring them on as potential support staff, then moving to the paid on call, paid on premise. That may be a little bit more predictable as far as where they go after they're done with sponsorship. It would make them a member sooner than later and allow them access to the department. I haven't mapped that out yet, and it would require, I'm waiting to see how this mentoring and coaching goes, because it would require us to have people assigned to those that would ultimately be on staff. So right now, it's all volunteer. They don't get paid at all.
Because the one thing, because they're kind of like the start of in the hopper, you know, since like 5 of them have been, I guess the question I'd have, I'm kind of wearing a couple different hats here. I want to protect both the volunteer, the employee, and as well as the management, you know, the supervisor, as far as how, have all the legal questions of if they get injured, workers, you know, I want to make sure that all the liability of the city is
addressed,
taken
and
care of.
basically, they assume the risk of their training. It's really no different than a ride-along. When people come to us and ride along with us, they're doing so at their own peril. So they will sign a waiver. Our candidates do sign a waiver. We are not responsible for their training. We are accommodating their training with equipment.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's all kind of past all the legal HR questions.
I can assure you, once again, we have a crack staff in HR, and they do not let things like that go unattended.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joe, you mentioned 3 elements to your chaplaincy program. I got 2 of them: peer support, post-traumatic stress. What was the 3rd one?
It's critical incident stress.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the fire department staffing report? If not, thank you, Chief Fulmacher. Item 6 on the agenda, revision of the PFC rules formatted for public review before adoption. I think, and Sarah, you can correct me, when did we start this? Last October? Somewhere in there. And, you know, we've kind of, I think, gone through, we've had a couple of different looks at it. The most recent one, and the one I think we're going to pull up now, is our attorney reviewed and made suggestions for us to consider. And so I'd like to kind of systematically go through. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at it. Has everybody had a chance? And one thing I have to admit is my eyes, it kind of blurs from here for me. Oh, I should have brought some glasses, but
Oh, I can make it bigger. Just
yeah,
one
that would be
second.
helpful.
Yeah. Well, that's way too
There,
big.
well, that's maybe.
Let's see
Okay.
if I can move up.
Sarah, maybe if you want to just go by line and then say what the change is.
Sure
And then if
thing.
somebody, I did not see anything in reviewing it that was a red flag for me, but maybe others do. So I just want to make sure we cover that.
Sure thing. So the first is a series of edits that is really similar. It's basically after Fitchburg Police and Fire Commission, our attorney suggested putting commission, or I think he wants us to just in one spot have commission or PFC. We don't necessarily have to spell out Fitchburg Police and Fire Commission throughout the document. So like if you look further down, he talks about the commissions, the commission, the commission. So maybe we want to just
Leave it at that.
leave it as commission, or do we want to just be known as PFC? One or the other is what he's stating. So after Fitchburg Police and Fire Commission, either we just refer to ourselves as the commission, or we refer to ourselves as PFC.
Is there a preference from members? If not, let's go with what the attorney says.
Okay.
The commission.
Okay, so
Okay.
accept, although I think we still got to take this out of here. I'll clean this up. All right, so the next one, going down to the mission, it is the commission's mission. So it really is just spelling out,
Right.
this is our mission. Again, the commission is committed to promote and support. The commission works to provide levels of accountability. The commission does not have authority over the day-to-day operations. And then the commission does not have optional powers. Scrolling down here, we've got the PFC consists of 5 members, of which 3 members constitute quorum. The act of a majority, not the majority, of the members of the commission shall, at which quorum is present, shall be the act of the commission. In the absence of the, so it's just a missing word there.
Yeah.
So these are pretty standard, not really changing the substance.
Sarah,
Yes.
did you want to change that reference to PFC that we were just in that paragraph, the commission?
Oh, did you see that?
Yeah, if you keep going, yeah, right there, the PFC can.
Thank you. Thanks for catching that. I will do a find and replace if I see any PFC and just replace it with commission.
Good
Okay.
catch, Chad.
Yep. All right, then going down, it looks like quite a bit here. So it says the secretary, we took out the secretary also, and basically serves as custodian of records for the PFC. Because we already say up here that the recording secretary shall, we don't need to say the secretary shall. We can just start it out as serves as a custodian of records
Right.
for the commission. So again, I'll fix all of that. Whoops. All right, and then scrolling down, just spelling out human resources. Oh, he had a comment here. Let's look at this comment. Bear with me here. If I can get over there. Okay, so he's unclear what we're trying to say here with this line. So let's go back over here. It says, in the event of a vacancy, the city has already established a succession process in which an interim chief will assume this role until the PFC approves a process and the active filling of the chief's position until a permanent appointment is made. So he's not sure what we're trying to say there. Is this confusing, and is there a different way to word this?
If I recall our discussion, I don't know that Tom was there, and he may have a better suggestion with his legal background. The idea is that there is a process in place already for an intern chief. And then once, we know that, we have a vacancy, then we start the process, but and we can agree with that or not, but the steps are in place already, is my recollection of that discussion. I remember both chiefs weighed in on this as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Question, was it confusing to the attorney or is it confusing to some other members of the commission?
Yeah, it was confusing to the attorney.
Good.
So he wasn't quite sure what we were trying to say here, but it almost sounds, it's just a really long sentence. I'm wondering if after the and, whether we need to really have that there, or if we should just reword it a little bit.
What if after the and we say, and will actively fill the chief's position until a permanent appointment is made? So we would be saying the interim chief will assume this role until the PFC approves a process, and the interim chief will actively fill the chief's position until a permanent appointment is made. I believe that's the intent of it.
Yep.
So
Chad?
I'm also wondering, I think it's the PFC's role to actually approve the interim.
Correct.
As well. So we have a couple of things, I think, rolling into play here, and I think we want to be clear that, I'll use the most recent Madison police example, where the chief announces their retirement, indicates who the interim chief is upon the effective date of the retirement or resignation, and then the PFC at its next meeting can elect to obviously approve or not approve that person who is delegated as interim. Mm-hmm. So I think, I assume that the Police and Fire Commission would want that ability to approve who is designated as the interim.
Correct.
And then obviously that once that is approved, then that person would remain in the interim role until a permanent replacement is found. So I'm trying to think how we could potentially say this. Maybe it could say, in the event of a vacancy, the city has already established a succession process in which an interim chief will assume the role of chief, or in which an individual will assume the role of interim police chief, period.
Or just interim chief, because it could be either.
Yeah.
Or.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you want to say that again, Chief?
In the event of a vacancy, the city has already established a succession process in which an individual will assume the role of interim chief, period.
Perfect.
I know where you're going, but go ahead.
And then the next sentence would be, at the commission's next meeting, they would act upon this appointment, you know, however you want to say that.
Either confirm or
Right.
pick another interim chief.
Right.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean, that's a question for the attorney. Does the PFC have the ability, if they don't agree with the person who's been designated by the city to be the interim, do they have the ability to identify a different interim?
I think they do. I'm just going from my memory of the statute, but but it'd be good to ask that question.
Yeah, I think we should pose that question to the attorney just to confirm.
I have a question. Isn't the deputy chief, like, we were in that situation, what, 2 years ago?
Yes, that's typically how it would go, is that the city,
it goes.
would designate the deputy in each department to be the interim, but I suppose, I think it still has to be formally acted upon by the commission to approve that.
And, that raises the question, we had a situation where the deputy wasn't going to be applying for the chief's job, 2 years ago. And I think you want to make sure that the process is fair, so you might not have, based on, based on the circumstances, the totality of the circumstances, where you might have someone else who is not going to compete for the job do that so that it's being viewed as being a fair process. I'm just giving you off the top of my head. so.
Right.
I still think that when we put an individual, we already have something in place that says it's the deputy chief, and then you want more explanation in the event he's not competing for the position of chief.
I don't think we have to spell that out. I think we
But so do we put an individual, or we put the deputy chief is the one that will assume that role?
well, the deputy will, the deputy, that's designated who is, in command in the absence of the chief. The question is now you're going through a longer process to fill a potential vacancy. So
I just have a problem with an individual. It could be anybody then, when we already have something in place.
It couldn't be anybody because the city has a process in order to appoint that person, and that's what we state above. Right?
We do
Yeah,
have
I
a
think
process.
you're right, that was really what we were referring to. Both Jeff and Rosa, what you bring up is probably what we referred to as the succession process for both departments would be that the deputy chief would assume the interim role. So, I mean, it could be a question for the attorney if it just specify that it's initially the deputy of the department or deputy chief of the respective department, and then obviously the question for the attorney would be is it simply an approval for the PFC, or does the PFC have additional authority to direct or approve some other individual to be that interim person?
Yep. I've got a note here to ask Westcott that question. Okay. Are we good to move forward?
Yep.
Okay, so our next,
Well, just for clarification, is that written somewhere, that process, that just thing we just discussed? Like a deputy chief in his job description, for example, it's stated that he will assume
He
the
or she.
position of chief in the event of blah, 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 blah. Is that written somewhere?
Sarah, do you want me to
I'm going to double check the job description, but I'm pretty sure,
do that while you're carry on?
yeah, that would be great, thank
Oh,
you.
that should be on the city website, right?
Yeah, it's on the city's website, yep, just go to our NeoGov job openings, and then here, it's really easy, I'm in my drives, just
Okay.
one moment.
And while you're looking for that, there's also reference to the idea that there is an established succession process.
Right.
Maybe that's, Rosa, what you were thinking you might want to take a look at and understand, or at least ensure that that is a written process that is in place.
Right.
Yeah, so I've got the job description open right now. If I look at other functions, typically that's where you're going to find filling in. Hang in there. Yep, administer the department operation in the absence of chief of police. So I think that would definitely fall under, whether that's a permanent absence or a temporary, but that's in the job description.
Okay, well then we'll leave it as it is.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the document here. All right, so if we scroll down, for some reason, I've lost the highlighted part, so bear with me here. I think I'm in my header and footer, so. Come on. I'm not really sure why it's looking like this. You probably can't see the highlighted, can you? Nope, it looks really light. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to share it again. Just one moment. Share screen. There we go. Share. Oh, same issue. See, review. Not really sure why this is looking like this. Scott, do you have any idea why?
It's the brightness of the color of the highlight is too close to white. If you've got a darker highlight color that you can replace that with globally.
Yeah, it's just it was fine before, but for some reason it's looking, here. I'm gonna save this really quick and then open it up again. I'm gonna stop my share. Ay.
The key is that you can see it.
Yep. Desktop.
I'm wondering if we opened it up on ours, if we would see what the original was on my phone.
Okay. I'm gonna open this up again. There we go. Okay. All right, we've got problem solved. All right, so let me share my screen. Let's go back up to this, share screen. Note to self, just don't leave the document.
There you go.
All right, so let's go back down to where we were, which is after we talked about that. So the next section is basically just moving the Wisconsin statute a little bit. Then we added quite the process for filling vacancies. I think this was our new language. Yep, this is the new language that Jim Wheeler and the chiefs and I worked on. Yeah, again, just it's some simple, adding a couple words and capitalization, but still able to continue on with those diversity, equity, inclusion best practices, which is really wonderful. And then, again, minimal changes. Minimal. And instead of other contingency, he just replaced it with similar conditions.
Okay.
And as we move on, it's continuing on. No substantial changes here. Again, just a few, taking some chiefs instead of chief.
Changes words like service to.
Yep, to department. Individuals. Yep, all very easy. Thereof, up to 6. Okay, this is the part that was added. Section 5.1, so regarding discharge, reduction in rank, which is something we didn't have. We just had discharge, disciplinary, and suspension. So it gives us an option to reduce someone's rank.
I think it's a good change, because it gives us options. Potentially, you could see, I'm just giving you my view. I would like to hear from other commissioners if they agree or not. Anyone? If not, then let's keep it. Okay.
Okay. And going down, looking good. Instead of initial hearing, he changed it to evidentiary hearing. Complaint to charging party. Again, charging party, evidentiary hearing. Charging party, we'll fix that there. And then under initial hearing, he took out a couple of items. So commission shall receive the report of any preliminary investigation. That was removed, as well as the commission shall receive and act on any requests. So it looks like he provided a comment. Let's take a peek at it. Oh, it was just indented, so no comment. Is that okay with the commission to take off those two?
I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Anyone else? I mean, certainly want all 5 of us to weigh in.
Okay, and then it keeps on going, just using the words charging party, and then our citizen complaint procedure, just replacing a few words, nothing substantial. If the citizen complaint form needs more information and/or does not allege conduct that would rise to level of discipline, then it may get routed to the chief or others for resolution. And that is it.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, if not, I'd like to thank everyone. Sarah, if you want to just have that one little bit run
Yep.
by the attorney, as kind of a quick question.
Sure, no problem.
And then I think the idea is to have somebody move that we take this out for input, and we're not finally adopting it, because I think it's just good practice to have this, the mayor and other people, hey, we're doing this, this, that they're aware of it. It's our purview, but we're making them aware of it. The chiefs make, anybody who's represented aware of it. And my plan would be just to send a letter, just for your information, this is what we're doing. I talked to them, 8-9 months ago, so that they knew that this process, but then if citizens have, thoughts, they can at least, comment. So, are people okay with where it's at to, go out for review? We'll send a copy, or I'll do a letter to the officials, and I expect maybe the chiefs would share it with their staff. Are people see that as the process? Go ahead.
I think there's a few things. Obviously, you're right, Tom. I think clearly involving the mayor and other elected officials with some background information.
Right.
Even something as simple as a timeline of when the process began and where we're at now, and that it's still a draft status. And then, if the commission wants to, put it out on the city website that it's, available for comment by public for the, a 30-day period or 15-day period or whatever the case may be, I think that would be something the commission could choose to do. And then, obviously, if the commission would like the chiefs to inform their respective unions of the potential changes or the draft changes to the rules and regs, yeah, I think that'd be fine too.
I would like that to happen. Any other, Jim?
Yeah, I like the idea that we're sending this out under the premise that this was not a reactionary document to current events. This is something that was put into place before the unrest and the fact that this commission was trying to proactively address the administration of the commission, not react to something that happened with some of the things that are happening elsewhere in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to second that. I think that the timeline of us producing this essentially is important and would lend to that notion. What about the process itself, though? So when you'd say we would send this out to other groups, do we want to do that internally with, like, for instance, send this out to the chiefs so that they can do that and send this to the mayor first and then publish this online? Do we want to do all that stuff in coordination? How do we want to, approach that?
Good question. My original thought, if I were to find, I don't have it in front of me, was to have this in a format that we share it with people and see what comments we get, if any, and then just do the final adoption. So, but I think it is very important that the people who are really subject the most to it, which are, both the police and fire departments and the people who work there, as well as the people in City Hall, the HR and the city elected officials, that they all be aware of it. And then, of course, the citizens know about it too. We're pretty open about, hey, we made this process. We started it, almost a year ago, And, you know, we want to make sure that we've got our rules, you know, where they should be. I'll cover some other things later, but I think, you know, again, that's the transparency of how we got here and why we have these, so. Jim?
So are we talking about a two-step process where it first goes to internally governmental agency like the alders, the mayor, get their feedback, and then put it out to the public, or all at once?
My thought is that I think we could probably cover it all at once, but give enough, you know, 15 days, you know, give enough time so that if there are reactions, people have had a chance to look at. How long do the chiefs need, do you think, to share with who you need to share on your staffs?
I think if you give it to us, it's really just a matter of putting it out. I'll make sure that Local 311 has a copy that they can look through, and then the rest will just be made available to general membership. Shouldn't really take more than two weeks.
So my plan is in the next day or two to draft a letter to, you know, the city officials, and then maybe, would you want to use that as the cover to share with unions that this is going out? Might be helpful.
Yeah, I would, yeah, I think that'd be the way I'd prefer to distribute it, is the same way that it goes to other elected officials and or the public.
Okay,
Because that gives the
I would agree
backstory
that
to
it
our
needs to go out at the
union
same time.
teams.
pardon?
I would agree that it needs to go out at the same time,
Okay,
so that nobody has preferential access.
good comments.
That, and I think the background story is important to the union leadership as well, so.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think from a timing perspective, you know, this may need to be coordinated with what, you know, what the timeline the PFC would like to set. Do you anticipate in the October meeting looking at comments and evaluating comments for that meeting? Or do you envision that the input period would perhaps bump up to or go past the next meeting, and therefore in November we'd be taking a look at any of the potential changes to the document, and then, you know, so forth?
Good question. Commissioners have thoughts? If not, my thought would be, yeah, maybe at the next meeting, evaluate anything we hear, and then final adoption maybe at the November meeting. You know, just to do it right, even though that's one more step. I think then, you know, again, we've been pretty thoughtful, and we've got the input from everyone, and
I think, yeah, for the next meeting, that it probably should be one where we're open to public comment,
okay, sounds
you
good.
know, at the next meeting, you know, so it's not just people writing and put it on the agenda
Sure,
and saying we're going to accept public comment on it also at that meeting.
good suggestion. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, so the next steps is Sarah will get this cleaned up, and I will get a cover letter so we can send out to everyone at this, you know, get the answer from the attorney that, yeah, that's fine the way it is, or not. And basically then I'll do a cover letter and we can send it to the city officials, the chiefs and the unions, and the public at the same time, so.
I'll get you an updated timeline too, just a for sure finalized timeline,
Yeah, that'll be,
because it goes back a ways.
okay. Anything else on that? I think we had kind of unanimous consent on that process. If anybody has other thoughts, let us know. So thank you, everyone. I think it was kind of a long process, but we got there. As it kind of leads into the next item that I put on the agenda, which is the future PFC training includes standardized systems and information. So like when I started on the commission almost 4.5 years ago, I didn't even know we had PFC rules. Nobody had given me an orientation or had told me these are the standards. I did go to the training that was put on by the League of Municipalities, which at that time was November, but again, that was half a year already. And you know, one of the things that I'd like to see kind of standardized systems, and I want people's input on, was just to kind of make sure that new commissioners know about, here's our rules, here's the standards. I met with Tom O'Day I think maybe a month or 6 weeks or so after we met, because I thought he was already ahead of where most of us had been on like the issue of what we send here is a public record. He had his own Gmail account, which, was specific. And I'm thinking, all of us are using our personal, what I send, to the chief on something that's a public record, so there needs to be a standardized training so that everybody who's on a commission knows these are the things we have to be aware of to make sure that we're, following the public trust, following the transparency, following the things that are, good government. So, I want to try to put some of those things into whoever's, on the PFC, whoever's, the president, make sure that the new people have gotten at least some basic orientation when they start, so that they're, not 6 months behind. I wanted to see, Sarah, I think you checked to see whether or not our attorney would, but I think she wanted the League of Municipalities on some of the, just the, open records and whatnot.
Yeah, I sent out a link to a free training with our cities and villages mutual insurance for PFC members. I don't know if anyone got a chance to watch that, but if it's helpful, I agree with you. We don't have like a standard welcome packet, which would be really helpful for new members. I remember piecemealing, emailing Tom O'Day, this document and then this document here. It wasn't combined and all, in a nice way.
This could be true of almost any commission, or city government body where you've got citizens or elected officials, so that they're at least aware of some of the, here are some standardized things that are part of Wisconsin law. Other people have comments about that idea, or other ideas that may be helpful?
I think it's a great idea, and thank you, Tom, for taking the leadership on it. And I'd be happy to help out in preparing an outline of what that kind of welcome or orientation packet might look like for our commission. And I do echo the comment that I think to the extent that's not done for other commissions in the city, it might be something we could try and work through for the other commissions as well.
Okay.
I also, Tom,
Yes,
I
Rosa?
do agree. I don't think the training that we go to, which is important, but this is, to me, was even more important because it just reflects our city, the nuances that we have here in Fitchburg. And I think we talked about that over a year ago also when we met with the attorney about specific trainings that we as a group could have as part of our meetings, if we have a short meeting or something, that things come up that we don't know the answer to, and if we don't need an extensive explanation, we just need a minor discussion on different things. And we thought that we could incorporate some of that in our meetings from time to time. So I strongly agree with having something, a package, a training for new members.
Well, even like small things like, okay, if 3 of us are talking, we can't start talking about, we're at something, we can't really hold, a meeting on some issue, it has to, because it's something that, if there's 2 of us talking about something, we have, it's not, but we can't have a walking quorum either. We can't use where I'm going to talk to Jim, so they, so, those are kind of things that we want to make sure that, people know, so that everything's, done above board, as it were. Okay, so the step on that is I'll start to get something that might be helpful, and I'll work with you, Tom, and we can share it with the other people. Is like, here's the standard when you come, at least a number of bullets that people would have to be aware of. The other thing, and I've mentioned this, that I think I'd like to mention to both chiefs, I think it'd be helpful, just from past experience, here's what happens, plan, when you looked at our rules, it made me think of it, about the issue of who speaks for the Police and Fire Commission if there's something. When, of course, I think we identified that I would be the one who would basically say, we're gonna make sure we don't make comments, we just say we're gonna let all the information come, and we're gonna be objective and fair, and, because you wanna be, transparent again, where you're not saying things ahead of time. And I think it'd be good to have that roadmap, decision trees and how it goes based on what may have happened. So, and where the chiefs make decisions and how that plays out. So, other thoughts on that?
just like the idea of setting a very solid foundation, making sure that those that inquire about the efficacy and the efficacy of the oversight of police and fire is that we already do have citizen oversight, and by adding more processes into that overall oversight actually slows down operations, makes us less efficient, and unable to respond as quickly as possible. So whereas other municipalities have instituted multiple levels of oversight, I'm not exactly sure how well that would fit in a time when we're trying to get things done in the best interests of our city. And so whatever we can do to identify what your role is in that citizen oversight is huge.
And I think we're not trying to add layers. I think we're just trying to make it so it's really clear and everybody knows this is when you are involved or not involved. And this is, exactly the process for discipline that as it proceeds in a case might be, so. Okay, anything, Rosa?
One suggestion also, I don't know how many people met the city attorney. And we all, we talk about this person referred to the person, but she has never, maybe one time, I don't remember, has come to the meetings, even just to introduce herself so we know who she or he is. And
I think the city attorney now is not the attorney that is reviewing our work. Sarah, do you want to cover that?
Right, yeah. So our city attorney doesn't specialize in employment attorney. There's so many legal matters out there. So we actually do contract with a outside employment attorney, and he is the one that actually went through our police and fire commission rules and regs. So we rarely ever, if there's ever any questions when it comes to PFC and employment matters, we always talk to our employment attorney about those.
and what's the name of that person?
Yeah, Mike Westcott.
So Sarah, if,
But Sarah, for things like open meetings rules and public records and walking quorums, that's the city attorney. And at one of my two approval council meetings when they were looking at my potential candidacy for the commission, I know the city attorney spoke to the council, the new council members and the old council members about some of those basic rules of governance and good governance. And maybe that's even a snippet of a video that we could just crop out for our commission and for other commissions in the city so they know those general rules as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yep, she does specialize in those topics.
so Sarah, is there a specific attorney that would be hired if we needed that person for the PFC, any PFC proceedings? Is that just one person, or do we have a law firm on?
It is a law firm, so it's Axley Law Firm, and so Mike is our main contact there, but we work with, her name's Leslie, we work with a few others there too. So yeah, that's the law firm though that we would likely utilize.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there other issues or, this is item number 7, things that you'd like to see standardized for information or training? This is something that, again, in the future you could bring up if need be. If not, I'll work with Sarah and
Yep.
the chiefs to get, and Tom, thank you for offering, to get this moved along. So are there any announcements?
Well, we're just having a bit of a conversation here that, in addition to one other question that you had for the labor attorney on the PFC rules and regs, perhaps, and see if I've got this clarified correctly, Jim. Jim's question was, would an attorney be brought in the case of a disciplinary hearing in front of the PFC, is what I interpreted.
Oh.
And if that is the case, then yes, we would likely use our labor employment firm to represent the city/police department in presenting its case. I think the next logical question then is there an attorney that would be representing the Police and Fire Commission in more of a general oversight? And I think that could be a question that would be posed to the labor attorney to get some advice on that, and/or the city attorney. Maybe two perspectives wouldn't be the worst idea there. And then that would potentially, I don't know if that would need to be written into the rules and regs, but it would want to be put somewhere if there was going to be an attorney, at least offered, that's going to do the whole oversight and advice to the PFC on the hearing itself. So if I didn't clarify that or added anything, by all means, Jim, correct me.
That raises a
No, that's
really
a good
good
addition.
question, so thank you for raising that. Because in my own mind now, I've started to raise, making sure the independence issue. Okay,
I will find out.
okay. Any other comments? This is good discussion, actually, so thank you. Any announcements?
The only announcement that I have is that hopefully I'll be putting my thesis in for submission in the next month here. So the focus groups went pretty well. A lot of good information came out of the group, and hoping that we have a reflective recruitment process as a result of that, as a result of those suggestions. And there's been additional outreach in the way of just community representation, just making sure that we have a sounding board that we can continue to tap off of in the event that there are concerns about things that really need to be addressed with our recruitment. So
Okay.
I'm happy that it went the way that it did, and still a lot of work to do, but we're getting close.
So this is
And
PhD.
then Jim, did you get a haircut?
I got them all cut.
So is
It
it,
looks nice. It looks nice.
is this PhD thesis, if I remember?
Yes.
So in like 6 months, we'll be calling you Dr. Joe?
No. And I don't think you'll ever have to worry about that. I think after this master's degree, I am going to be writing other articles that don't require academic review.
Okay. All righty, any other announcements? If not, I thank everyone for a good meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to
Oh, I see
adjourn.
Rosa, you can second, so. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.